Hey everyone, Hammer Dan here with Hammer Performance. Today we're going to go through a quick video of how to disassemble a primary, pull the clutch basket, motor sprocket assembly off, and remove the transmission out of the bike. Today we're working with a Buell. It's a lot easier to access here. The motor is the same as a earlier model rigid frame Sportster. The primary is going to be the same on a later model Sportster as well. So today we'll go through some of the quick tools here that we're going to need to go ahead and do this primary disassembly. We are going to need a 7/8 wrench, a 5/8 wrench. We're going to need a 3/16 Allen. We're going to need a T27 Torx, pair of pliers. We're going to need a 1 1/8 inch socket and a 1 3/16 socket, a couple small screwdrivers. That's kind of our basic tools here. Also a ratchet set, just standard. This thing's been used to take apart many motors, so good to have. We'll be using that quite a bit. So with that being said, the first thing that you're going to want to do is go ahead and drain the primary fluid out of the primary here. There's a 5/8 plug down below. I've already disassembled or removed the plug, and we've already drained our primary fluid out of there. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and remove. Oh, the other tool we'll need as well is a 1/4 inch Allen socket as well. So the next thing we're going to want to do is go ahead and loosen our primary chain down here. You're going to have a 7/8 socket right down here, and we're going to use our 1/4 inch socket or a 7/8 nut, and we're going to go ahead and loosen that. So once we loosen that, we can then go ahead and turn our adjuster and lower it all the way down. Just like that. Okay, from this point here, once we got our primary loosened, the next thing you're going to want to do, and we've already done it as well, is you're going to want to loosen your clutch adjustment cable up here where your rubber boot is. So move up the rubber boot. It's a 1/2 inch wrench and a 9/16 wrench. Bust the nut loose, turn the nut all the way up, turn your 1/2 inch adjuster all the way up to loosen all the slack in your clutch cable there. Again, that'll be on your Sportster rail, pretty easy to access. That way we loosen all of our tension in our clutch there when we go to disassemble our clutch assembly. So next we're going to go take our T27 Torx, and we're going to remove our cover. Make sure to push in real tight when you're using these Torx. Whoever developed Torx should be shot. Half the time they strip, but we'll go ahead and pull these all out of there. Now again, a lot of this process you'll go through if you're looking at swapping out a clutch as well. Just swapping out a clutch, you're going to have a rubber O-ring seal to pull that off of there. Your 4 bolts in your cover. Then you have your spring and your nut adjustment there. You'll pull that right out. At this point, you're going to take a small screwdriver, and we're going to go ahead and screw this out. And you'll see as it comes out of there, we get to the point where we can hold that nut and spin it. Just like that. Now we have our mechanism here. We're going to slide straight out, turn it, unhook it. Our little boot right there, a little clip for the transmission or for the clutch. So there we've taken and disassembled all the mechanisms out of here. Pretty straightforward and easy. Your clutch cable. At this point, we're ready to go ahead and remove our primary cover. I like to use a little extension We have our 3/16 socket, or Allen socket. We're going to go ahead and crack all these loose. Now on the Sportsters, you may need to remove the foot peg mount. Of course, you're going to want to remove your shifter mechanism that's on there. That's all very straightforward to do. So at this point, we'll remove all of these. You may want to keep a drain pan underneath this when you remove it, because there will be fluid still housed in there. It may get a little bit messy. If you have a speed wrench, helps to get things out of there pretty quickly. This one's in there still a little tight. Okay, so there we have it. Got all of our bolts out of there. Kind of tap that cover to break it loose. As you can see, we got quite a bit of fluid coming out of there. Oh, got one bolt left. Thought I had them all. This one's a bugger too. Okay, now it should just slide right off of there. Should be a key word here. Go. Be careful so you don't lose any of your alignment dowels that are in there. Sometimes they'll stick in the cases. We have our 2 alignment pins there. Pull the gasket off, set that aside. As you can see, we've made a mess. So we'll go ahead and sop up there real quick. Okay, grab some more paper towels here. Again, good to put a little catch underneath it to catch it, but we have most of it drained out of there. Okay, so at this point you can see we've down to our primary chain, our clutch adjustment screw, our motor sprocket nut. So at this point, if you're changing the clutch out, you just need to get to this point here. Now we're putting our clutch compression tool on. We're popping out the snap ring and the security ring that's in there to keep that snap ring in place. And then you're taking the diaphragm spring off, pulling off the top. All your clutches come out, and voila, you're ready to go ahead and swap the clutch, put it back together, put your diaphragm spring back on. Clutch is done. We're going to carry it one step further from here, and we're going to go ahead and disassemble the whole clutch basket assembly and motor sprocket assembly and slide that all off of there so that we can get to the transmission. As you can see here, you have your 2 bolts for the starter. Very easy to pop the starter off if you need to. You can get the starter off of there with this setup on here. It's a little difficult. You need an Allen to do that, and kind of jiggle the starter basket there. So your starter ring to get past it to remove that, but it can be done. So at this point, a couple different things here to go ahead and do this. There's a few tools that we could use to go ahead and remove the motor sprocket nut and the transmission main shaft nut on there. You can make a bar, very easy to do, out of a piece of metal. That's what we've done here. We've made a bar that will slide between the teeth here to go ahead and hold the teeth so that we're able to remove the nut. You can purchase a plastic shoe like this, which allows us then to put it between the primary chain and the teeth, depending on which nut you're taking off to do this. Slide it up on top as well. So if you're fortunate enough to have air in your shop, we can go ahead and use an air gun with sockets to go ahead and remove them as well. So at this point, we need to get to the transmission main shaft nut that's on there. So we're going to need a pair of snap rings. And there's a snap ring in there that we're going to want to go ahead and get into to remove. Sometimes this can be a little bugger to get out of there, but we can pop that snap ring out. Your mechanism comes out, and voila, that's all it takes to get to that transmission nut. Okay, now very, very important, the transmission main shaft nut here is left-handed thread, so you're going to turn it in a clockwise direction to loosen it, so to be the tightening direction to loosen it. Your motor sprocket nut is normal, lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. So we're going to go ahead and use air to do this. So 1 3/16 on the transmission. If you have an air gun, we're going to need the adapter for the air gun. Ross, can you find me the big adapter? Actually, we'll do this one the old-fashioned way here. So what we can do, if you have a breaker bar and you don't have an air gun, you'll want a breaker bar like this. Okay, and we are going to set this in here. Let's see if we can get this in there properly. It's kind of a pain in the butt to do, so we'll use the shoe. Put our shoe in there. We're going to go ahead and break that loose. Once we get it broke, 1/2-inch ratchet. So when we take this nut off here, there's also a cupped washer. It does have out stamped on it. Make sure when you put it back together that the out is facing out towards you and cupped in to hold that nut on there. So we'll take that off. Shoe out of there. Okay, sometimes on this motor sprocket nut, there's a lot of red Loctite on there. Sometimes it can be a pain to get off of there. If it is, you can put heat to it with a propane torch and heat it up, kind of melt that Loctite that's on there. It'll make it much, much, much easier to take off on that nut. So on this one, the proper one. Again, on the front's going to be 1 1/8 inches. and it is in the normal removal direction. So we're going to go ahead. Just like that to take the nut off. Okay, once we got that nut off of there, we're ready to just slide off our whole clutch basket and motor sprocket assembly with primary chain. You're just going to grab it. This can be kind of a pain to pull off because we have our magnets on our charger assembly there. So you got to pull that kind of hard to get it come, and you got to pull the clutch basket at the same time, and then you'll get it to the point where they both slide right off of there. So we'll go ahead and set that aside. Okay, almost done. So at this point we need to take apart our shifter mechanism here. Pretty straightforward. You're going to need a pair of pliers, and there's a C-clip on here. If we can see that C-clip there that we need to remove. Okay, best way is to just come in with the pair of pliers, try and get on an end if we can. This can be a bugger too, but we will want to try to pop that C-clip off of there. Like I said, this can be a bugger. Let's try and pop this spring off down here. Loosen some tension there. Take off that spring. That's easy to get off of there. Kind of loosens everything up on us. There we go. All right, 30 minutes later, get that clip off there. This comes right off your shifter mechanism there. Okay, we can take this little spring off in the back. Actually, we'll leave that spring on. So at this point, we need a 7/16. We're going to take this nut and this nut off. There's a washer behind each one. Okay, we should have the washers, a little spring removal. Bing, bing, put those in there. That in there. Okay. At this point, we are ready to go ahead and take off our 5 1/2-inch bolts for our transmission. We'll grab the 1/2-inch. Getting old, can't see. Loosen that one. Loosen that one. Loosen that one. That one. Always good to keep yourself organized when you're doing this, so you know what bolts go where. A lot of people use a piece of cardboard, punch holes. You want to get really organized on what ones went and where. last one. Okay, so once we have our 5 bolts out of there, we're ready to slide our transmission out. Very straightforward. Just kind of wiggle it right out of there as you grab it, and voila, there it is. If you need to do any transmission work, change gears, switch anything out, it's that simple to pull out of there. Pretty straightforward. And there you have it. Now, if you wanted to take the starter off, you got the 2 Allens there. Remove those, starter comes right off. Anything else that you need to replace down here, very straightforward. So, taking the primary out, disassembling your primary all the way down to the transmission and sliding the transmission out. Again, if you're swapping the clutch out, you won't have to take it this far. You can leave your motor sprocket assembly and your clutch basket on there and just go to, and we'll do a video later on how to put a clutch in. That video will be coming down the road here. So, but this is a complete disassembly of the primary on how to pull the transmission out in case you need to do transmission work, whatever the case there. Change out your front motor sprocket assembly. A lot of guys will go to a sealed 8-bolt. If you have an earlier model Harley Sportster that has the 4-bolt, it's a good idea to upgrade that to an 8-bolt. A lot of times going with a sealed mechanism there as well to seal those magnets so that if we do have a failure in there, it doesn't go through the whole transmission and everything. That's a bugger to clean out and whatnot. So there you have it. If you have any questions, shoot us a question down below, comments, whatever you think there. Other than that, like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Peace out.